Okay, here we go. Lights, camera, action. This is table task 41. Second of our series of table test videos for 24-25. So what is this one about? Let's see. 41 is this. Now that we've talked about a tape measure, let's see how that shows up. Move it back a bit. It says learning to mark a board properly with the right pencil and the right tool. Okay, that's the title. The title appears on the page, as you know, from the first one. Now let's get into this particular task. It means I have to join the screen back in my outdoor studio. Again, this is very unscripted. The first one I cut my head off. I don't even know if I'm cutting my head off here, but that's okay. My script is right here, the same sheet you're going to get. Learning to mark a board properly with the right pencil and the right tool. Now, why does it say right pencil? Because there are three kind of pencils we use primarily. One, just a regular pencil with a nice sharp point. Two, mechanical pencil that mechanically comes out with a really thin lead. Both of these can break easily. And we have this, which you have not seen before, or maybe you have seen, is a carpenter's pencil. It's exactly 1/4 inch thick, and there's a reason for that, and it's not round, so it doesn't roll when you put it down, if you ever wonder why it is. Even though regular pencil can be round or hexagon like this, these are designed so they don't move if you put them in place, because sometimes you use these pencils in different kind of settings where you need to be able to find them. So here's the three pencils we use. They are used in different reasons. We're just marking a board in the shop. All of them will work, but by far the mechanical pencil or just a regular pencil, sharp, are much better for just marking projects inside the shop setting. And there's a way to do that. So let's take a look at that. So these we'd use for that. These, before I even show you that, are really, and you can use them to mark anything if it's not really needed to be accurate or marked super accurate. Primarily for marking dimensional lumber. That's this lumber that we use to build with. This is a piece of a 2x4, so that's what this would be used for. It's rough. It's got a big fat lead, so it doesn't break. These are not the same way. At least it does break, but it's a lot harder to break than these when you're marking across a rough piece of wood. That's what it's for mainly. So remember that. These two, again, are for marking wood inside the shop, and there is a method to that, okay? And one of the ways is when you're marking, and I'll get ahead of myself a little bit by using one of these squares, is you want to mark lightly, not hard, so the lead doesn't break, and you want to mark slightly at an angle like that. You can use it a long time with this. It doesn't matter if it's lead, and then you mark it like that. And we'll get into what that mark means later. Again, same deal. I'm using a pencil. I have it here. Whoops. I want to put it like that. There you go. I marked across the board using this tool. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about, which is number 2 on our sheet, is identifying the various 90-degree marking tools. This is a speed square, mainly used by frame carpenters. You don't see this a lot, although I have a lot in the shop. Used in a shop setting. There's another one here that's mainly used in a shop setting. This is conveniently fits into the pouch of a frame carpenter who wears a set of nail bags with other tools on it and other material he carries on the job site. And this is one of his main tools. We're going to come back to how this is used in a few minutes. Again, speed square or rafter square. Here's the one we mainly use in the shop, and this one's a little rusty. Looks like this. It's just a square. Remember, these squares are just a 90-degree marking tool, although this one has a 45-degree angle and some other information. We'll talk about that in a second. This is a 90-degree marking tool. It's hold it against the board, and you mark it. Here's a bigger version of the same thing when I have a bigger piece of wood. And last but not least, the last one we want to look at is a combination square. It looks kind of the same, except it has a few things in here you're not going to worry about right now, but this is the feature I want you to see. You can unloosen it and this moves. This one's a little bit hard to move. Look, it's been bent, but it has a movable 90 degree. So there's a reason for that, and we'll get into that. That's one of the tasks. So again, combination square has got some different things on it. It does move. It's the only one that does. Rafters are speed square, used by frame carpenters, and we'll get into what that's used for. And the main one that we use in the shop setting is called a tri-square, like tri. T-R-I is spelled, tri-square. Those are number two. Now, how to use a combination square for marking a rip cut. Here's a board, right? A rip cut would go along the edge like this. Now, how do you use a combination square is, say I want a 2-inch rip mark, I would loosen it, put it right carefully here on 2 inches. This one doesn't want to move very well. Lock it in place. Now I have it put in the 2-inch mark place, and I can take it like this on the edge of my board, put my pencil right here. Hope you can see this on the video. Hopefully you're looking up, but you'll see part of it. Move my coffee cup. Put it on the edge, hold it here, and as you hold it on the edge, I'm just holding the pencil in place, and I can put a mark like this. Goes across the board. See that? There's my pencil mark for a rip cut, which cuts a board to width. That's what a rip cut is. We'll talk about that at a later date. But it puts a nice, clean mark once I hold that little lip on the edge of it. Okay. How do these edges of the square when marking? Okay, all these squares, the combination square I just used to mark for the rib cut, the speed square, and the tri-square have a little edge to it. Why is that important? Because when you take the board like so, you want to hold it up against the edge like this. Hold it this way. I'm holding it with my thumb here, or I can hold it this way so that this edge holds against it. It's designed to go this way and this way to make what? An easy 90-degree mark. There you go. They all have that feature. This one I just set up for the 2-inch mark. I'll reset it here. Boom. It goes against here. Same thing. I'm holding it tight against here. If I wasn't holding it so you can see it, I would be holding it on flat with this hand here against the edge, and then I would take my right hand, which is I'm right-handed, and I would mark the edge like so to make a nice clean edge. Again, I've seen too many people try to put this like a ruler across this and do this. No, it has a lip that you can put it up against. Speed square, same thing, goes up against there. You can make really quick lines fairly easily. So creating a crow's foot with a pencil to determine the cut mark. Okay, yeah. Say I'm going to cut this particular board. I take this is exactly how you should learn to mark. I need a 16-foot board. I'm going to try to do this left-handed. I'm going to hold it up here. I'm pulling this way so it's tight and accurate. I carefully put an accurate little line right on the 16-inch mark, and then right here, I put that mark. So it looks like a little V almost, but they call it a crow's foot in construction, and that is the proper way to mark a board. So if I went somewhere and came back, I would never find this little pencil, especially if this is what is dark, but I'm going to see this mark. Now I know this is where my square goes against the wood right here. Now I know I can make that mark with my square. Crow's foot. Little mark accurately where you want to measure it, but then just a little line up from it so you can see it carefully. Just kind of like what you see right here. And last but not least, using the pivot point of a speed square to properly mark an angle. Here's my board here. We're not getting too much how to read this, but when you have the speed square, you'll see the word pivot right here. If you push it up against here and then you turn this, you can draw different angle marks. If I hold it up against here, I can draw different angle marks. Right? All kind of them. See what I'm saying? A little different example. There is a pivot point, and this is used for marking rafters, but it has this pivot nature where you hold it here where my finger is, and then you move it, and these all mean something. We'll get into that later when we get a little bit more into the speed square. I just want you to learn to use this, and this has a built-in 45-degree angle. That's how you use this to do angled marks across the face of the board. You pivot it off this point, holding it with your finger. Okay, you're going to practice all that stuff. There's a few questions, of course, on the back of your sheet. Which of the squares you use that you use has an adjustable edge? That would be the combination square. Which of the squares that you use can pivot and mark an angle? We just looked at that. That's the speed or rafter square. Demonstrate how to rip the cut. Demonstrate how to mark a crow's foot. I just showed you that. What type of lumber would you most often use a carpenter's pencil? That would be dimensional lumber or framing lumber. Which square is most used in a shop setting? That would be the tri-square. And when would you want to use a larger pencil with a dull pointed lead? This is a question that didn't come up on what I just said. I would use a larger pencil. There's sometimes I use a kindergarten pencil or a framing pencil. If I'm tracing a template, or sometimes if I'm drawing over a design with excuse me, carbon paper or tracing paper behind it, that's when you need that kind of pencil, right? You definitely do. And again, it's for doing template tracings or pattern tracings. You don't necessarily need a really sharp pencil. Demonstrate various squares and how you would hold them across the board. I just showed you that, holding it against this edge. That's it. Number 41, task is in the books. Very good.